Welcome to the Patron Saints of Pop Culture podcast. I'm Miguel Covarrubias. This month we are discussing Promising Young Woman, the award-winning movie that has you questioning if you actually like Bo Burnham or not. Thank you so much for listening. I do truly appreciate it. Please review and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Today we will be talking about the myth of the good guy, the revenge thriller redemption, and the privilege of abusers. Again, thank you so much for listening. I know it's been a while since we last talked, and if you missed the video on social media, it was due to me taking a full slate of classes, 10 credit hours, working full-time, and being a parent. I didn't have enough time left to write or record, much less think about anything else. So here I am, 2 weeks after my finals, ready and raring to go. So welcome to Season 5 of Patron Saints of Pop Culture. This season, I'm going to welcome guests who would like to talk about their favorite pieces of pop culture, occasional video recordings of my podcast recordings, so those of you who would like to see my ugly mug, and deeper, in-depth reviews of the symbology of the cinematography. If you're interested in being a guest co-host of the Patron Saints of Pop Culture, I'd be happy to take your application for such, and I will tell you about how to do that in just a minute after I talk about my other show. Oh, and if you didn't know, that's what I'm taking classes in, is cinematography and filmmaking. Speaking of which, I do have a new side hustle because, well, photography/cinematography is a super expensive hobby or obsession, and I need to pay for equipment somehow, so I am doing photography, videography for hire. Check out House of C Photography on Facebook to see what I'm doing there, and some of my personal work on Instagram at Miguel Learns Film. We are expecting our second child rather soon, like any day now, and that means I'm not going to be getting a lot of sleep, but also that I'm going to be writing Season 2 of The Lost Letters. If you have a science fiction short story that can be adapted into a letter format, I'd love to feature it. I'm also looking for voice actors, and will bring back some of the actors from last season. Please let me know what your favorite pieces were from Season 1 as well. You can get a hold of me at patronsaintsofpopculture@gmail.com. I'll be posting a submission standard rubric soon on social media. All right, let's pick up some quote-unquote nice guy at a bar and take him back to his place for a very stern talking to about Promising Young Woman. Wow. Honestly, it was one of the best films that I have seen in years. And I know some people aren't giving it the credit that it's due, but if you've watched as much as I have, I'd find it hard for you to disagree with me. Almost every piece of this film was well crafted to tell the story that writer, director, producer Emerald Fennell was trying to tell. Her work with the art director and the cinematographer was understated, yet spoke volumes. I'm not sure if it was so understated that a lot of people just missed it, or because it was so obvious that people saw it as ham-fisted. I mean, I loved it. The center framing was tastefully and artistically done. I didn't know about this until these intro classes that I'm taking, but I go back and look at almost any movie or TV. Nobody uses center framing unless they're trying to display extreme reactions or emotions. The reason why I bring it up is so much of what is going on in this film is a subversion of tropes that we've seen before to make a point. Let's start with the casting. With the exception of Christopher Mintz-Plasse, almost every actor in this movie has been associated with the nice guy character or with the good girl trope. Yet almost all of the characters have demons. And that's what makes this piece so amazing. It's honest without being too honest. It's unwatchable. The center framing uses wings or halos with a depth of field background, slight blur effect, casting Cassie as this anti-hero yet also a saint, and in my opinion was brilliant. I loved it. At first you think she's maybe a serial killer with the blood and the book and everything, and then you get to the McLovin scene. See, I don't think he was a nice guy character before, because I don't think any character in Superbad was a nice character. Anyway, Christopher Mintz-Plaza's character, who you see go through the whole thing, it's just a Stern talking to. This subverts your expectations. Then, just taking a revenge thriller and making it non-violent, aside from the ending, is a huge subversion of the genre. Honestly, I could go on all day about this movie, and I'm going to have to personally rewatch it because there are layers and layers that I know I haven't even gotten to. Like we discussed a bit when we did the episode on relationships in pop culture, there is no such thing as a nice guy. Much like the manic pixie dream girl trope that we talked about in that episode, this is a trope for men. Men, I'm sorry, but we are all gross, misogynistic assholes. Some of us hide it better than others, but it's one of those things. Much like racism, we have blind spots. Things we do that we don't even realize that we're doing until it's pointed out to us. Hell, there are so many things, so many times while watching this movie that I wanted to say, no, not all men, which I think was the point. The truth is, I'm guilty of doing these things sometimes too. I didn't do it as overtly as taking home someone who was very drunk, but I was naive in thinking that because I didn't do something like that, I was owed something. Women don't owe me anything. Men don't owe me anything. The only person who owes me is me. I owe myself more self-respect than thinking I'm a nice guy who always gets friend-zoned. Yeah, that was me for a vast majority of my life, including the first 5 years of marriage. I was married and thought this. Trust me, this came up in couples counseling. And that's the point, isn't it? This movie is important, not only for empowering women, but also for teaching men that there is no such thing as a nice guy. We hide our asshole behaviors so well that we don't even know we are doing it sometimes. And that's why the big Bo Burnham, Dr. Ryan twist even hurt us guys. He seemed like a genuine nice guy, but nope, he was as bad as the rest of us. Now, I'm not saying there aren't men on the spectrum of assholishness that fall closer to not being an asshole. I'm saying that they are still on that spectrum, that there's still an asshole in there. I think out of all the characters in the movie, Alfred Molina's Jordan Green showed that there could be movement towards the not an asshole side of the spectrum. Realizing how bad things were and trying to be a better person, trying to be a part of the solution. That's who I want to be. With a daughter on the way, I want to model what it looks like to be a toxic human in recovery to not being as big an asshole as I used to be. I guess it's a little sad that the character I'd identified with the most was rather pathetic. I briefly touched on this a few minutes ago in my review, but I wanted to spend more time on it. Fennell, who, by the way, is a brilliant actor in her own right in things like Call the Midwife and The Crown, wrote a beautiful script here that I believe is much more important to the industry than people are giving her credit for. As of the writing of this of May of 2021, there are so many revenge thrillers out there. Most of them glorify violence and justification in that violence due to the evils that have come before. That's the whole trope. An eye for an eye. And as a wise man once said, an eye for an eye just leaves the whole world blind. Fennell amazingly portrayed that. I think that it showed in Cassie's last stand against Chris Lowell's Al, as soon as violence was put on the table, that is when it all fell apart. The original ending of the movie was with Cassie's body being burned. And you could tell, too, it felt like an ending. The feel-good ending of Cassie's last payback was later added to appease the backers. There's that weird problem with the MPAA, though, that it almost touches on. The problem that sex, and especially female sexuality, gets a film rated worse than violence. Extreme violence is prevalent in our culture. I mean, even when I sit down to watch something with my son, I wince every time I see something violent on the screen. And there is a lot of it, even in kids' shows. I love how Fennell took the sexual violence against women and turned it so that Cassie's revenge mostly took the form of these stern talking tos. I mean, those are quite effective. If that happened to me while I was single, you better believe it would have made me wisen up and start down this path toward not being as much of an ass as I was before way sooner. It would have scared the hell out of me. This is one of the reasons why I loved this movie. It took a genre that I don't particularly enjoy and turns it into something different. I mean, violence, when you think about it, is much easier than having to face one's own failings. And Al is going to have to live with the guilt of killing Cassie and causing Nina to take her own life. Max Greenfield's Joe is going to have to live with the guilt of burning Cassie's body and hopefully his own toxic masculinity. You saw that Ryan was starting to face his own demons when he read the texts. The best revenge, I think, is making someone face their own demons and see how far they are from their own self-image. Finally, I love how even the title of the movie turns an aspect from society on its head. Promising Young Woman. This defense, specifically made popular by asshole Brock Turner, of the promising young man during a trial is often how many men get away with sexual assault and rape accusations. I mean, there is a Harper's Bazaar article that talks about this movie and is even titled, "Why Do We Protect Promising Young Men Over Promising Young Women?" As I have likened sexism to racism earlier, let's bring up the fact of privilege. There is an inherent privilege in this country, not only having white-presenting skin, but also being cisgendered male. Not only that, more often than not, privilege goes hand in hand with those who abuse their power. Hell, I can cite millions upon millions of cases of sexual misconduct within the church. And guess who is more at fault than any other demographic? White men. Now seriously, who else would fit the mold of the nice guy than preachers or priests? Now, thankfully, the veil has been pulled back in recent times, and we can now see clergy for what they are. Often they're deeply flawed humans who are prone to abuses of power. Again, I will touch upon Green in the movie, who is remorseful, and you see him strike a famous tableau which calls upon religious imagery, which is used to beautiful effect in this movie. This, of course, calls upon the image of the Pietà, of the Holy Mother holding a spent body. Cassie finds pity, and that Green has found a path towards redemption as one who has both been abused by those in power over him and one who has committed his fair share of abuse. I can say that the Alfred Molina scene alone had me so very emotional. There is a certain privilege that we provide those we see that could hold power one day, and those who may wield the power of their parents. This is why we don't see justice coming to the Brock Turners of the world. Until we begin to see that our old systems are broken, until we see that there is a deeply profound power imbalance in our societies, these cycles will perpetuate. We will never be free of them until we can see that we have been a part of the problem and discover how to find our own paths back to redemption. Much like Alison Brie's Madison, women are guilty of feeding these systems as well. We are all a part of the problem, And we all have to be part of the solution as well. So, on to a happier note. My saint of show, I'm going to go outside of the box again like I did with Hollywood. I'm going to say Emerald Fennell is the saint of show. She brought us this piece of art. It is truly something to behold. Even Conan O'Brien, in his interview with Max Greenfield, called it an important piece. I'd say the second act, which canonizes her for sainthood for this show, is the masterful weaving of all aspects of the film to create the story, the casting, the art direction, the cinematography, the script writing, the lighting. Everything was masterful to tell this story, in my opinion. All right, so here at the end, remember, if you want to co-host Patron Saints of Pop Culture, shoot me an email. If you would like to be a part of the Lost Letters, shoot me an email. Again, that is at patronsaintsofpopculture@gmail.com. And don't forget to join the conversation. And you can do so on Facebook, Instagram, and our website, www.patronsaintsofpopculture.org. If you'd like your Saint of Show shared, please let us know either in our DMs or comment on the prompt being posted on social media shortly for our next month's show. Please remember to review and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And, as always, be you. It's all you got, and it's all you can be.